Showdown, Legends of Wrestling was the third and final game in the series, released in June 2004 for the PlayStation 2 and Xbox. Why wasn't it just Legends of Wrestling 3? I don't know. Maybe this is where Vince got the idea to stop numbering WrestleManias. But why is Don Frye holding a snake on the cover? He's not even in the game. As usual, we'll start with the roster. As far as who didn't carry over, they got rid of all the promoters and made up jobbers from Legends of Wrestling 2. And there aren't any PAL exclusive wrestlers, so no Big Daddy and the like. But as far as real-life non-European wrestlers, the only ones who didn't make it over from Legends 2 are Mike and David Von Erich, which is weird because the rest of the Von Erichs are still here. As far as who's new, the bad news is there's only 9 new wrestlers. The good news is there's some pretty heavy hitters. You have the Ultimate Warrior, Sting, Randy Savage, Rick Rude, Kurt Hennig, Jake Roberts, Dusty Rhodes, Diamond Dallas Page, and Nikita Koloff. Add them with everyone else carrying over, and you have a pretty amazing roster. Really, at 70-plus playable characters, it's one of the better rosters you'll see in a video game, at least in theory. Now you can do a Volkov-Koloff Super Kami 6-man team, or build the Ultimate Heenan family. Speaking of characters, say hello to the worst character selection screen ever. Not only are all the wrestlers in random order, if you keep scrolling up, down, left, or right, the menu loops around again, so it's exceedingly easy to get lost. But why not just break them into different screens like pretty much every other wrestling game ever? The game looks basically the same, but it's really glitchy. You'll often see wrestlers floating in the air while going for pins, or they'll just teleport to another part of the ring. It just all feels pretty rushed, and sadly there was a good reason for that. They did away with the rock songs during matches, so sorry, Trapped fans. Although you do get bang your head during the intro screen, which is at least appropriately outdated. Instead of music, we get in-game commentary from Tony Schiavone, Larry Zbyszko, and Bobby Heenan. Bobby doesn't sound the best, which is too bad.
He calls that move the Oklahoma Stampede.
It's at the standards of other in-game commentary, meaning it's repetitive and not all that great. They also have Gary Michael Capetta doing ring introductions, and yes, he calls Brian Pillman. I checked. They tweaked the gameplay a little bit, in that you don't get different setup positions out of grapples, but there's more of an emphasis on putting combo moves together for maximum damage. It's basically a lateral move in gameplay. They do put up in-game instructions on the screen during the matches, which I appreciated. And there's also a tutorial narrated by noted video game expert Bret Hart.
What up, kids 6 to 13? It's your boy. Now it's time for your favorite show on YouTube, Cracking Codes, with your homie, Bret Hitman Hart.
To run, press the run button. To stop running, press the block button. To run in a specific direction, move the left analog stick in the direction you want to run and press the run button. There are 4 different states for the standing position. They are front, behind, bent over front, and bent over behind. You can counter your opponent's ready attacks, and when you do, he usually takes a lot of damage. To counter, quickly press the block button as your opponent begins his ready attack.
They did toss in a few new match types, like a tables match and Iron Man match. But who really sits down and plays one match for 60 minutes? 30 I can kinda see, but even that's pushing it. It's one of those options that sounds good in theory, but I don't think anyone really uses it. Remember the last game when they had a great career feature? Where you'd go to different territories and work for different promoters? And there'd be all these kinds of storylines and it was a lot of fun? Well, that's been scrapped. Now you just pick a decade and play a bunch of matches against guys from that time period and eventually, win the decade. It's really just a reversion to the old beat everyone else career mode. I really don't know why they scrapped the mode they used in Legends 2. Maybe they thought it would be too repetitive to bring back all those promoters a second time. Or they ran out of ideas for new promoters, but this is really a step back and an unnecessary removal of a cool feature. One great new feature is that you actually have a bunch of old arenas in the game. You can play in Madison Square Garden, the Omni, the Spectrum, Boston Garden, Mid-South Coliseum, Wembley, and someplace in Moscow for some reason. Anyway, it completely fits into the game's aesthetic. I'm surprised that WWE never attempted to have anything like this in their games. They also did away with the weird gambling feature from Legends of Wrestling 2, which is good. In fact, there's no need for that feature at all because they did away with all the unlockables. Every wrestler, stadium, move, you name it, is available right when you start up the game the first time. I don't mind a few unlockables, it adds some replay value, but if given the choice between having no unlockables and having to unlock a bunch of stuff, I'll take the former every time. Well, they didn't completely do away with unlockables. There is a new mode where you get plunked in the middle of a classic matchup, like, say, Randy Savage versus Ricky Steamboat at WrestleMania 3. And if you complete the objectives, you can unlock another set of matches. Anyway, it doesn't completely work for a few reasons, besides the fact you can always just play these unlockable matches in exhibition mode. First off, for, say, that Savage Steamboat match, the action is called by Schiavone, Zbyszko, and Heenan.
Did you see that one, Larry?
Not a pretty sight.
La Magistral!
Second, they can't mention the WWF, so the match circumstances are only vaguely hinted at. Third, the match is filled with moves that weren't only not used in the match, they weren't around in 1987. Well, it's certainly not a perfect feature, I still enjoyed playing it. Sadly, they did away with the cool wrestler interview clips from Legends of Wrestling 2. They did add a memorial to all the deceased wrestlers if you feel like being depressed. I don't know if I can call this game the best in the series. It has the best roster, but they took out the best feature, and the game feels rushed, which I guess isn't surprising since this was it for Acclaim. And I don't mean the Legends of Wrestling series, I mean that was it for Acclaim as a company. They folded shortly after this game was released. We've covered a ton of Acclaim games in this series. Some were solid, and others should be put in a cannon and shot into the sun. But they had a lot of ups and downs, more downs than up, frankly, but at least they got to end on a decent note. Well, that's all for now. Till next time, thanks for watching, and remember, the winner is you.